Subscribe to Rootstem Gaming before the 1st of April for your chance to win a fully painted Noise Marine figure. Welcome to Rootstem, and today folks we're going to be looking at the basics of airbrushing. I know my airbrush is not clean, but I think sometimes when you show people the basics of airbrushing, it's nice to see that somebody actually uses the airbrush. This is a cheap airbrush from Amazon. It's not expensive. This video isn't to go out to the guys that buy the badges and the other expensive airbrushes that you find out there. These are for the folk that are wanting to start on a cheap end of the scale to see whether or not airbrushing is for them. This is a Ganston. Never heard of it before, but I'll be honest with you, it's been quite a nice airbrush. It's been quite reliable, and it's quite easy to use. So I'm going to break this airbrush down and show you the component parts, show you how you actually clean your airbrush, show you what kits I got to start with, and then of course what I progressed onto. And that hopefully should give a lot of you guys a good start in airbrushing. Now, majority of airbrushes will actually be be able to be broken down into a hell of a lot of different component parts. You should always try your best to keep these particular component parts clean. Possibly after any particular heavy sessions. I personally will break this down. If I've had a couple of days of airbrushing, I'll break it down completely and try and clean everything as best as I possibly can. So if you're a beginner airbrusher, I'm sure that's a word I've just made up, you kind of need stuff like this. Now these are like a bit like old school pipe cleaners. Again, you can get these in sets from Amazon, and these have become very handy, especially the brush ones, to be able to clean your component pieces. It's also incredibly handy to have one of these, which is basically it's a bit like a needle, but a half needle that can go into that piece there. Now that piece there is your needle point. Some of them will be 0.3, some of them will be 0.5. Of course, a greater higher 0 point, you're going to get a greater spray, and a lower one you're going to get a lower spray. But that can block up quite easy when you're actually painting. This is perfect for unblocking it. Every single one of them should come with a key, allowing you to be able to break down your actual airbrush. Don't get me wrong, not all airbrushes are like this. A lot of airbrushes are designed differently. Some of them will have different chucks, some of them will have different nozzle points. You just got to make sure that when you've got one, you try and find any particular spares for it, and know where you're going to get your spares from. Again, Amazon's really good for doing stuff like this, but if you do have a local hobby store that actually specialises in airbrushes, it's always a good idea to go and seek their advice. Now, when using the airbrushes, you've always got to make sure that you've got your cleaning components correctly. I use Vallejo airbrush cleaner. A lot of the time you have to, it's nearly empty this one, but a lot of the time you have to thin it down just to be able to make sure that the components are clean. I keep spare cups about just to be able to put some cleaner plus water in there, and maybe soak some parts every now and again. If you are going to soak parts, I mean this genuinely, soaking, take off your rubber seals. So be careful when you're taking them off, but take off the rubber seals on your... Some of them will have different seals, but if you take off the rubber seals, then they won't disintegrate, because sometimes certain cleaners can actually cause a bit of an acid effect and can actually start to deteriorate your rubber seals. And when your rubber seals go, then of course you can get air that flows back into the cup, which is never a good idea, because then of course the air is not going outwards, it's just coming in, and it starts spraying your paint from your cup everywhere. It's awful to use. You can also have it where paint won't flow at all, coming out of the actual nozzle, making the airbrush pretty much useless. Now, one of the basic things to know when cleaning airbrushes is to make sure you don't use tissue. If you use tissue paper, especially in the cup area there, what you'll get is that the tissue itself will slightly disintegrate. Little bits of it will collect down at the bottom, and it will then block up your nozzle, and you'll not be able to spray properly. What you kind of need is a J-cloth, or some of those cheap dishcloths that you can get from your local supermarket. These are perfect because they don't disintegrate, so you absorb the paint and whatever cleaner you're using, but don't disintegrate into your pot. And as you can see from my old one, because this is a brand new, this is a new piece, and the J-cloths themselves, you can normally get them in a pack of 24, and this is a quarter of one that's cut, and it'll last ages. So it's not expensive to be able to clean your airbrushing. Don't get me wrong, this video is to try and show you how to do it on the cheap, but these components are your basics. You really need these bits, these cleaning bits, for your cheap airbrushes. Now, when I got my first airbrush kit, it was actually what didn't come with this particular airbrush, it came with another cheap airbrush, but it was an all-over kit that came with this mini compressor. Now, these I think are perfect for when you're first starting out. It's tiny, very compact, and it runs at about 25, and normally comes a lot cleaner than that. I am a messy painter, just to let you guys know, as you can probably see from some of the surface here. These are nice for when you're starting out. They're perfect for when you're actually just getting into it. They're not massively expensive. They don't take up a lot of room, but because they haven't got a tank, they do make a hell of a lot of noise. So if you have got one of these, be prepared for a lot of noises while you're actually operating. And then from here, you can always upgrade to a better tank. One, again, I mean, the one I've got, hopefully I'm going to pop it on screen here, is just a standard compressor with a tank. I can set it to an adjustment, and I tend to keep it at 30 psi. But I didn't get that until about 6-7 months in of me actually dealing with airbrushing. A lot of the photographs, if you ever look at the Rootstem Instagram page, have been done with that mini compressor. Simply because it's there and it's easy to use at the time. And finally, just another note on what you kind of need. I always recommend that you get the Vallejo airbrush flow improver and the airbrush thinner. A lot of people say, well, just use window cleaner or something of that nature. I'm always dubious when it comes to those type of like recommendations, simply because if you're not experienced enough, you're not going to know what you're doing. So what I recommend you do personally when you're getting your kits, get these two, mainly be using that. That can be for different types of paints. Sometimes that can be used as well for a quick clean if you're not wanting to use the airbrush cleaner. But that one for definite, the flow improver. And then once you've got used to flow improver, you want to have a look for cheap alternatives, that's fine. But this is ready, it's mixed, you just put it straight in, you've not got any messing around to do. When you've reassembled your airbrush, I always give it a quick try, turn on your compressor, put a bit of water in there, normally I use an empty water bottle to be able to put the excess spray into. As you can see, that flew out quite smooth. So you know you've not got any particular blockages. Always try it with a little bit of paint as well, something a little bit thicker than water. But when you, of course, getting your consistency down, I always make it a little bit more like skim milk, so it is quite thin anyway. And that's it for your basic beginnings of airbrushing. I am going to do another video next week, or which should, by the time you've seen this, will automatically be on my channel, rootstem.co.uk. Basically showing you how to thin your paints and what best techniques to try, and possibly a video after that as well, showing you different techniques on undercoating and blending and possibly pre-shading. Well, thanks very much for watching this one. See you next time.